Steve, how are you?
Hi, Vince, how are you?
Oh, you never changed. I didn't see you for a while. You were still pretty young, you know.
How you been?
Good, pretty good, yeah. Yeah, I went to Italy for 4 weeks. I almost died.
Rainy day,
I was
huh?
105, 107, almost every day for 20 days. Then after I left, it cooled off.
That's the bigger one. Monona's
105,
smaller.
107.
Whatever, 17
It never
miles.
happened.
Yeah, yeah.
One that's around Madison.
The Berlin Trail.
Yep.
Have to be
To
17
the-
and
Yeah,
over.
I was
I just
remembering-
forgot the name.
Grumlin, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. The
She's-
I had to
Cumberland
go
Trail.
get my
All the way to
son,
Madison.
and then I left.
Yeah, they're gonna go to.
Okay, well, just outside of that.
After two, that's pretty
It's
early.
two.
Then,
Yeah.
then you're on
Three seasons.
roads
We went
to
there
get to
to,
downtown.
two friends
Madison.
worked there, and they wanted
And
to
it's
hang out with
crushed gravel
Went-
for most of it.
4 or 5. I thought it was 5.
Oh, we were all paved. We
No,
stopped in like,
State Fair.
Hey, Dan.
I mean, 2
over
p.m.
that
is
fire,
really early.
that,
Yeah.
Lapland Peak Tower, that highway, we stopped there, is that C?
Yeah.
And we turned around, went back.
That's how we
Okay.
see.
Okay.
They had some issues with Greek.
Pretty good
I guess.
distance.
Yeah.
Got such a
Pushed
blister.
everything down.
Well, somebody told me they had
No, I didn't see the signs.
Saturday night.
Oh, did they?
Slow go with me.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah.
Get that many teenagers. They don't still want teenagers.
To make it to Madison, I'd be like, oh, I gotta go
Like
back.
Rob Hunter's son.
Dang it.
and son, Ray.
Uber, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want to
cost
move the
problems.
bad.
Uber with a bike rack.
I think they made the call.
Maybe a few dollars. eh?
Take care of it.
Yeah.
Just love
I know we've got one person on their way, or we have a quorum though, so we're ready to go. Put that in the capital improvements budget. All right. We'll call the meeting to order, and I will ask staff to take a quick roll call.
Mayor Devine.
Here,
Nathan Kiso.
Here.
Sagar Talani.
expected.
David Rashka.
Here.
Alderman Vitale.
Here.
Alderman Haas.
Here.
Here. Jason Kazmarek.
Here.
Dave Webking.
Here.
Melinda
Diaski.
Diaski. Here.
Patrick Slaughter.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, so we will move on to item C, which will be approval of the minutes from our, I'll take them together unless there's an objection, from our meetings on August 1st and August 15th.
I
To
move
move,
approval.
Mr. Mayor.
So motion.
Second.
Oh, I'll
Motion
second.
by Vitale, second by
Okay.
Haas. If there are no corrections or changes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you. Then we will go on to section D, and we'll take up item 3, and I will turn it over to staff.
So each of you should have your first sheet, should say 2023 capital budget department requests. We just wanted to go through this department by department. Department heads can speak whatever they wish to the progress on their items. The first here is administration for the vehicle cameras. You want me to speak to that? So the first item on the list, last year we wanted to put vehicle cameras in a lot of DPW vehicles. IT is currently doing a pilot to see if we could go with consumer grade equipment, which would save a lot of money. So based on that, we're gonna see which way we're going forward.
Likely it'll be less than.
It should be significantly less than the $100,000 that we had in the budget. if we can do consumer-grade equipment.
Okay.
And then next up, we have Patrick, if you want to speak to your development items.
Well, all these items are still on hold. I think the pedestrian improvement one on 60th and National, we're working with us engineering to come up with some solutions. I think we actually implemented some temporary pedestrian crossing and speed sign through some other means, but the bus shelter, the farmer's market, the inclusive park is, just simply costs. The Liberty Heights Pavilion is actually estimated around $1.5 million now, so it's just the level of funding to get those projects done.
Does the bioswale for Liberty Heights, can that be leveraged with MMSD
Yes.
GI money?
It's we actually have that in our budget with the pavilion.
Okay.
And how about TIF money for some of these projects?
Extending?
Yep.
Well, the inclusive park could be a TIF project, but we would have to, we just don't have any increment at this point
Yeah.
in that TIF to be
Some
able to pay for
direction,
that.
I'd have to double check.
And we don't have land control.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I believe these were all approved last year, so there should have been a funding source available. That was, if it's part of the capital improvement budget in the 2023 budget.
Yeah, so while I'll double check that. I believe that's the case. So,
This is just a review of what should be worked on. This is not what we're looking at approving.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
that'll be the next sheet on the,
That would be the 2024.
yep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I'm not aware of I mean, if anything, we probably said we would try to get $1 million of CDBG funds, but it's still $500,000 over that.
Okay.
How's the school district responsive in this project?
I mean, we're trying to get a partnership, but the level of partnership would be maybe around 200,000 towards it, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I think then if there's no questions, we can go on to engineering. Correct?
Yes.
So, a lot of these projects are under contract. 59th and 61st are under construction right now. Two alley projects were combined with Orchard Street, and Orchard Street just had its sidewalks installed. The next alley they're gonna start on is the 108th, 109th one, and then the last alley will be 58th to 59th. Arthur is slated to start August 21st. Boone is under construction. The lead service line replacement was postponed for this year because DNR changed the way the funding works. Used to be 100% principal forgiveness. Now it is not, so we don't have as many areas that qualify for principal forgiveness. So we're working with DPW staff and finance staff to come up with a funding mechanism for that project where we don't have to repay a loan or incur a lot of cost to us or to the residents. The parking lot was just awarded, so we're getting the contract, the parking lot between 75th and 76th just was awarded, and we're getting the contracts ready for that to be signed. The pavement patching and repair includes 3 traffic calming areas, one by Greeby's, one on 117th in Cleveland, and one over on 102nd in Lincoln. And then 84th Street is our primary patching area for this year. Pierce is under construction, almost completed. The PPII program, which was paired with the lead service replacements, was also postponed this year. It'll pick up again next year due to some funding issues. Our annual program of sanitary sewer relays, storm sewer relays, and water main relays are all either out for bids or almost out for bids. The sidewalk program for this year was postponed because the bids came in very, very high with only one contractor, so we postponed it to next year, and we'll combine it with the area for 2024 to make a bigger area, get a better economy of scale.
Can I interrupt you there?
Oh, please do.
Yeah, and so didn't we postpone the sidewalk repair another year, a previous year, or so is this 2 years?
Well, I think it was postponed in 22, and we did it in 23.
Okay,
But it's a different, they're different areas. Right, right. It came in, the engineer's estimate was like 150,000, and it came in at like $280,000.
yeah.
And the budget was $200,000, and so it's still $80,000 over budget, and it just seemed, especially with one bidder, it didn't seem appropriate to recommend that be approved. So we want
Sure.
to be good stewards of the city and citizens' funds, so.
Yeah, it all makes sense. It's just that I don't want to skip our sidewalks. Our sidewalks, I think, are starting to be noticeably in disrepair.
Sure.
So, yeah, I get you. Thank you.
But the goal is to do it next year and do it with and then the good thing is the areas are right next to each other, so it makes a really great bigger project where we're gonna get hopefully this better economy of scale, save some costs for the city, and just make it a much better project, so.
Thank you.
The storm outlet for the Kinnickinnick River is in a Milwaukee County park, and I just started looking at this, and my understanding is the county wants to charge the city a $300,000 permit just for the privilege of working in their parkway, and so we want to find a much better solution than that. So I never want to give the county $300,000.
$300,000
Yeah.
permit?
Yeah, it makes no sense to me, so we're not doing that this year. We'll look into that in the future.
Can
I
we
mean,
backfill
is
them
somebody smoke opium
$300,000
down
for
there
cutting
or
down
what?
100 for 30 years?
Somebody's smoking opium, I think, really.
So
I mean, asking that kind of money, really.
it's a crazy amount of money, so just for a permit, so
Yeah.
we're looking at different solutions and looking at that differently. The street lighting project is underway. Washington Street is almost done. And then the Beloit, as Alderman Vitale can tell you, is underway.
Underway is progressing well, you know.
Yep. Lincoln, this is our final design year, and so we'll be constructing that next year. National is actually open, although they're doing landscaping on either side, so the parking lanes are closed, but the main thoroughfare is open and was open for State Fair, which was the goal. And then the National project is in its infancy. We were just able to negotiate the design contract. It's a 2 to 3 year design, and then maybe a 2-year construction, because it's about a mile long of roadway, so. That's it.
Thank you.
On to me.
Fire, yep.
All right, so the ambulance replacement, they are ordered. We're just waiting for construction to begin. With, like everything during COVID, supply chain issues hit the manufacturer, so we're just waiting for some parts to come in, but they should be on the line in the coming weeks, and we should have ownership before the end of the year. The fire extractor, so that is a special washing machine made for washing our firefighter gear after it's contaminated with carcinogens. That we have not yet ordered, but we will, and that's a pretty short turnaround time. Those are available in stock. The nozzles, we're in the process right now of just finalizing exactly which ones we want to get. We got some on as samples, and we're just testing them on the training grounds to make sure we get the right ones. They last about 20 years for a set, so we want to make sure we make the right decision, but we'll buy those before the end of the year. The sedan, we are still making a final decision on the make and model. So last year we bought the city's first all-electric vehicle. We bought an electric Ford E150. So we ordered that early spring after the capital budget for this year was approved. That took a while to get in stock and then get upfitted. So now we've deployed that for about the past 4 months, and we've been seeing how we like the electric vehicle in the emergency response mode, and the feedback's been really good. However, we grossly underestimated the charging speed without having the charging stations, just using the regular extension cord to plug into the wall. Even after 8 hours, the vehicle barely even ticks off on a charge. So now before we invest in another electric vehicle, we want to get the charging dialed in. So we're working with Public Works and We Energies right now on electric charging stations in our fire administration building. And depending on the cost of that and the speed of that will dictate whether or not we go with another electric vehicle with this purchase or if we go with a traditional gasoline engine vehicle. So we'll have it ordered before the end of the year, but we still haven't decided on which route we're going with that. And then the Station 2 dorm remodel, that was a miscommunication on my part. I did not think that we had funding identified with that, but Jason Kazmarek educated me earlier today saying that, yes, we do have funding for that with some of the ARPA funds from the COVID. So we've already reached out to Melinda and Dave, and we're going to get the ball rolling on that really quickly. And hopefully, obviously it's not going to be done this year, but we'll hopefully have an architect and a contractor on board before the end of the year and get this project underway.
Any questions?
And then, moving on to IT, Tony is excused today, but I got an update on those items. He had a firewall replacement, that's been completed. And then just this week, they should finish the rollout of their new support tools. And then the last item, the Liberty Heights fiber, I believe, barring extra complications, that should also get wrapped up this week too. And then on to planning.
Thanks. The Beecher Street string lights, that project is underway, coordinated with our engineering department. And as you recall, as the notes indicate, we came in drastically over budget in 2022. And it was kind of paused, and we reevaluated with our engineering department and our consultant, and a new design was sought and coordinated with another circuitry project that's currently underway on Beecher Street. So the CDBG portion of it, which covers the funding for this, is about $245,000, which was approved a couple months ago by council. So the project is moving forward, and string lights should be implemented as part of that overall project. The pedestrian improvements at 68th and Beecher, that is on pause. I think just given the overage on the previous item with Beecher Street lighting, there wasn't enough capacity to cover the $160,000 expense. So, like the string lighting project, while traffic safety and pedestrian improvements are needed at 68th and Beecher, we'll have to rethink that one with our engineering department and allocate. Yeah, go ahead.
I know, I was working with Dave's team. We have some crosswalks and some in-street signs that we're gonna
Okay.
put in that area to help
Okay.
in the meantime.
Thank you. And then the downtown pedestrian improvements, that project is on hold for a little bit. It was out to bid earlier this year. We didn't receive any bids to do the paint and posts in the downtown West Dallas area between 70th and 76th Street. The idea is to rebid that later, either later this year, in the fourth quarter of this year, or early spring of early in the year next year in 24, first quarter, for a let of that contract. Hopefully we get some bids, and then that could be built in 2024. And that, I think one of the reasons why we didn't receive any bids in the just a couple months ago was that there was a tight tolerance on completion of the project, the state fair and some other things going on. I think the contractors just decided to pass on it, given the tight tolerances of the due date and what was expected. So we'll try again later this year with the bidding, and hopefully have a better result towards implementation in the spring next year.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? Good. Thanks, Steve. Sure. Back to Jason.
The ERP replacement, we've decided with this that we're not likely going to go with one system for everything, with the idea that not one system can do everything well. So at this point, we're working with USI, our consultants, and they're also recommending that we kind of break out the HR, payroll, timekeeping modules, and select a vendor for that. So right now, we're looking at 2023 select a vendor, I believe, with the goal of rolling that piece out in 2024.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are no questions then. Go to Public
If-
Works.
Thank you, Mayor. For the 96th Street pumping station, we budgeted for a generator, and the first step has been performed by our consultant with our needs assessment, what the capability would be required for that location. So we'll have to review that and then also look at the long-term strategy of that pump station. If we want to use it as it's currently being used, or if we want to use a bypass around that pumping station. A consultant has indicated that we would have enough water supply for the west side, the west end. We would have to install 2 additional booster pumps at that location. So again, that's for reevaluation in the future. Backhoe replacement for the water division has been getting estimates and quotes. The boulevard landscape is progressing and will be starting in September. The bucket attachment for the recently purchased excavator 2 years ago was ordered in May. DPW facility, thank you engineering, Melinda, and finance, and everyone for their help, and the council. That's progressing, very exciting. Fire hydrants, just for ongoing hydrant replacements. Fire Station 2, we're looking at replacing the generator there. Again, we have to start with the consultant to see what the needs assessment and evaluate what would be the capability that is required. So Chief, with your new information, we'll have to kind of coincide that.
Sure.
Garbage truck with the plow, as mentioned, with the supply chain issues. This has been somewhat of a delay because the vendors that we normally use, they are 1 to 2 years back, and they are again looking for electronics. So those orders have been put on hold. A lot of the vendors will not take orders at this time, so you have to kind of, I guess, wait and see how that transpires. Historical Society for LED lighting, the 20,000 there, Jason, is that through grant funding? Do we have the funds for that? I just want to check.
I can circle back with you on that. I gotta
Okay.
double check the grant funding.
We attempted to purchase electrical vehicles, 3 of them, through the carbon reduction grant through the DOT. We did not receive that grant, so that one is off the books. Liberty Heights, garbage and recycling containers for road for those improvements in that park. We're receiving 3 estimates for those. Liberty Heights lighting, we just received 1 quote for the improvement of the ballpark lighting. What is being proposed is LED lighting, but also the weight of these lights. We have to verify if those lights can be installed on the currently used poles. So that's going to be an issue that we got to do more evaluation of. Library elevator, looking at modifying the elevator and getting it updated. That is in progress. We did receive 3 quotes, and we'll either go to the library board or the common council for those approval of funds. Parking signs for State Fair, looking at purchasing additional material for that, but that's something that I need to coordinate with engineering yet and see what needs to be done for the placement of those signs. Police station Sallyport and the police station substation, working with engineering, with Melinda's staff. That's going out to RFP shortly. The scissors lift replacement, again, that was provided with grant funding, and we were denied that as well for electrical scissors lift. Sidewalk tractor, that's in the process of being purchased. Our storm vac truck, that has been ordered, common council approval. Streetlight replacement poles, I believe development or planning may have put this in. That's something that we have to take a look at and start ASAP to get those ordered. Street sweeper, we were looking at a electrical street sweeper through, again, the carbon reduction grant, and again, we weren't approved for that purchase. Transfer station lighting, because of the limited use of the building, that will no longer be needed, so we can save $25,000. Tree replacement has been ordered, again, through the assistance of engineering staff for the MMSD grant. So the $10,000 there, Jason, we will not be spending or needing. Water meter, again, that's for the annual requirements for installation. And then the wheel loader, we're getting estimates for that as well. So it's ongoing.
Thanks. Go ahead.
So, when you mentioned the fire station 2 generator, the questions, does that have to do with adding the electric charging there, or is that a different station?
It is a different station right now, but I think that's the future that a lot of this, we call them small vehicles, the consumer grade vehicles, the non-fire trucks. I think moving forward, we anticipate buying more electric vehicles, so we should probably, when we buy 50-year infrastructure like a generator, probably plan accordingly.
So are we gonna, I mean, that's probably a bigger question, like, are we gonna buy charging for each building where we keep vehicles, right?
So if the city decides to go in that direction of having electric powered vehicles, then that would be the type of improvement that we should do at each facility, but also if we have those throughout the city strategically placed. So if we go to the fire department, go to Public Works, it's not only at your facility, but you'll need it throughout the city as well, so.
But are we gonna then get generators at each place that support that too? Cause isn't that
We'd have to
an
review
extra
that,
load?
Yeah, yep. A lot of that will depend on the type of service that is currently there, but also what kind of a upgrade of that service. And that's something that we would have to communicate and talk to We Energies.
Are they giving grants?
There's possibility some grant monies
Yeah.
available.
Jason Shack has been talking with Public Works, Electrical, and We Energies about different funding options that are out there.
There was a Fetcher grant out there for charging stations that I thought I saw. There was
A
some.
while back, wasn't it?
Yeah. Might still be out there. Under the infrastructure bill.
If I had to guess, I don't think the charging station will have that much impact on the generator size. What are the odds that you need to charge your electric vehicle while the power is out? I mean, that's gonna be pretty few and far between.
Unless there's a natural disaster.
Correct.
So our electrician, if I may, he did add that based on the number of chargers, the number of service, the amperage would be increased. So it would be like 340 to 480. So Mr. Mollison was giving me that information too recently. So you may have to increase the amperage to that location.
What does that look like in dollar signs?
Again, we'd have to communicate and try to get the quote from We Energies to say, hey, is that going to be 20,000 to have another service or a larger service? You know, I'm just throwing the money, 5,000, 10,000.
I just think we need
It's
to
unknown.
do this on a bigger picture. I know we wanna go this way, but like, is it really feasible for us to put charging at each building and?
We gave you a white paper on what it would look like in the police department. The new generator that you helped us install, the word that we received was woefully inefficient if we go to an electric fleet. You can't have police cars that can't get on the road because they don't have power. And do you recall how much more power they said we would need, just for the generator.
Yeah,
And our generator was how much money? 700,000?
well, for the work and the labor, probably about 650, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been increasing based on the material increases and.
So then I have a question about, it says hybrid F-150s. Are they hybrid or are they electric? Because there's different things, right? I have a hybrid car, I don't have to plug it in, and I get 50 miles to the gas.
These you would have to plug them in.
So they're,
Electrical,
Hybrid.
hybrid.
okay, hybrid plug-ins.
Ford does make a hybrid pickup too, that is a gas and hybrid engine that I've
Mhm.
seen.
Because that might be, as we're trying to figure that out, that might be a good
Option in the
transition.
meantime.
I don't know. I mean, you have less oil changes, you know, like all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So I was
Potentially,
hoping-
maybe less maintenance, but you have to consider the battery, the
Right,
life of the
true.
battery, how much it drains over the life. Is it 5 years, 7 years? I don't know. The
Somebody's
replacement of
gotta
those.
be studying these. There's gotta be a study about this somewhere.
We'll look it up. I'll get back to you on that.
I'm sorry, I just,
No,
You wanna do it right the first time and have
well, yeah, and
synchronized.
then, the water meters, this probably doesn't have to do, well, does this have to do with the reading, the electric reading?
No.
Are we finished with that yet, or are we still having people?
we have a
walk
few
around?
properties that we have to manual, and it's very, very low. 20, 30,
So
it's
just take
nothing.
Like a day to do
Correct.
that, because I know it used to be that we had like 2 people that would,
No,
walk
it's
around.
all automated, pretty much.
okay.
Everything is, yep, the readings. Did you want me to have staff to evaluate, I guess, the electrical? I mean, we can,
We need to, I don't know if we need to say as a group or something that we need to probably look at how we're gonna deploy this citywide if we're gonna have to.
again, the experts are fleet, your fleet person, our electrician.
There's gotta be some cities that have studied it, I would think, as far as what it looks like.
Who's calling Madison?
Yeah, they're,
Madison,
right.
or-
They have an electric fire engine.
Do they?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
from
But
Pierce.
only one though, so it's,
Mhm.
makes you wonder.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to be a beta, yeah.
Yeah. I'll go on the record and say that for the next 5 years, we won't have any electric fire trucks. Something that I'm gonna ask you to buy.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, I don't see really any problem really to, just like anything else, a lot of time we do have some study for, you know. So to me, it'd be more appropriate to know exactly what it would cost us, you know. Mr. Mayor, then I have another question for Chief Pooler. You know, I understand the environment have been changing, you know, in regard the having more female on the fire stations, all the 3 stations. But I understand that you need to create additional dorms, which is additional money. But when I'm looking at it, it is that to create, say, a couple bedrooms in each station with the showers, of course, I mean, it's costing $900,000 to do that?
Yeah, and that's just an estimate. So Wauwatosa just finished so they were like us, where they had just one big dorm, and they decided to subdivide it, and it was in excess of $1 million. Now Tosa does everything to a different level.
Well, I mean, maybe they got more money.
We're hoping maybe a bit
They
more
got more money,
modest.
so maybe that's the reason, you know?
Yeah,
But
but
since-
they have ARPA money for that, too.
Yes, this isn't taxpayer money, this is ARPA money from.
Well, it
COVID.
is. Okay.
Yeah, it's all taxpayer
it's
money,
true.
right?
It's not from our
Different
local property
taxpayers,
tax
yeah.
base.
But Yeah, I just kind of wonder, you know, really, the questions about separate sleeping area would help reduce spread of germs, you know?
This is true, you know,
Yeah,
you've seen
I
some
mean-
of
I
the
mean, I
firefighters, some of them are
understand
pretty
that.
big dudes, and they're all wearing CPAP at night now, and they're spraying their germs all over the common
So,
dorm room.
so in other words, I gotta be careful with my wife. If I go to bed at night, she can spread germs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
and it's expensive to, you know, to take one big room, bigger than this, and divide it into 10 or 12 smaller bedrooms. You gotta not just put up the walls, but you've gotta touch the electrical system, so you've got outlets that meet code in all the rooms, the HVAC to run vents in all the rooms, the fire alarm system to have an alerting device in every room. It costs a lot of money and brings a
know,
lot
I
of
understand
contractors
that.
in.
sure.
All right. There's no other questions on item 3, then we can move on to item 4, the 2024. Hey, Sagar. It's the 2028 capital improvement program. Good time to show up. And then, first up is administration.
So the first thing is just putting blinds in our customer service center for additional security when they're not open, when we're open for voting or different things. It would be helpful have that closed because they're handling money, they're counting money, they're handling checks. I don't know if it's going to be $5,000. That's just a guesstimate that I put in there. So.
Would these just be regular, like
Yeah, I mean, we
IKEA
could get-
blinds, or?
We could get some really substantial ones, but yeah, I mean, like, we have IKEA ones, it could probably
Retro
get it
fit
for
those.
like less than 1,000, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see. So
Okay.
that's what that is, and the next two things, and the last thing were, the police department was getting some quotes on these items, so we decided to get them here too, just because of the public's access here and the challenges that possibly could arise with, events. I'm a little nervous about the election next year and the safety of staff and things like that, so, there's bullet resistant panels for the council, that's around the dais, that'll stop for a few seconds, but pretty much there's no way to get out. So, I don't know, unless we move to a new building, that we can actually set up with security in mind. I don't know that that's a good use of resources. The bullet resistance glass, again, in the customer service center for protection. I believe the police department is getting that in the front of, for their staff there. And then I'll go back to the operations study, but the riot-proof glass, so that has to do with the front doors, so people can't break them, come in, and then we would have likely, not this room, cause that would cost a lot, but like the glass doors on this lower level and the first level that actually go into the building, so people couldn't get in. That, I think, is probably a good use of resources, as long as we're gonna be in here, and especially with the upcoming possible issues next year. And then going back to the city building operations study, with our new public works facility, engineering and IT are going to be moving out of City Hall. We have had discussions about different other departments moving to other buildings, but after engineering and IT leave, we'll probably just have about 50 people in City Hall, and we have, I don't know how many millions of dollars in upgrades.
It was proposed in 2018, 30 million.
So So one of the things that we've kind of talked about was expanding the library to have more of our services in one place. So I was asking for a study to look at that for a long-term solution for us to move out of City Hall. That's what that is.
Okay.
And I guess I'll go for the next, the clerks, the electronic voting machines. These are where people can just, instead of having a printed out ballot, they have a ballot that they put in and then they pick which candidates they want to choose. This is especially good in partisan elections or like the school board elections where people aren't familiar with not voting for people or voting across party lines. A lot of people's ballots get spoiled because they do not follow what they're supposed to. Plus, these also provide ADA availability. Right now, they can be, there's a matter of programming. So we have 20, I think it's 26 wards. So in each of the machines can get programmed with, I think, up to 3 wards at them. So sometimes some things get backed up because people are trying to vote. Like Ward 18 is our biggest ward, I think. So if we had one machine programmed with that, that would be likely backed up. We're really trying to push the electronic voting machines, but people are not going to use them if they have to wait in line again. But they are $5,000 a machine, and we're requesting 25. That would be, if we got everything we wanted. There is one grant that we can get for $750. I'm not sure if that's even worth applying for. It might cost us more to get the grant, but I'll apply for it. So that's what those are. And then we do our central count, so we count all of our absentee ballots in here, and we're in here pretty much all day. So if it's a very sunny day, we've put paper up on the walls to block that, so we're able to do the counting. So also if people have meetings in here in the morning, I think we've had our capital improvement meetings in here where we've been almost blinded.
Council committee meetings,
Yes.
right?
So that's primarily for election, but also for other meetings. So that's what those 2 are.
Okay.
Questions? All right.
Mayor, farmer's market lighting project, we did get a design and then the cost came in around $400,000. I think we might be value engineering that currently. I think there's a meeting later this week on it. We probably have around $240,000 in CDBG funds for the project, but you can see we'd have to somehow value engineer that project down or find some other funding to do that project. Liberty Heights Pavilion, very similar. We have to either start a capital campaign or truncate the project somehow to bring the project down. But what I hear from consultants is no matter what the size, these things are very expensive because they are, well, you build them very strong, make sure that they don't get vandalized and things like that. But just because they're small, the contractors charge more and it's a higher cost, so. And the Longfellow Playground, the Longfellow School is closing. It's actually up for sale. I think the school district's going through an RFP process on that now, and one of the long-term issues we have with schools closing are the lost playgrounds potentially. that are there, that are part of the neighborhood. Kids use those school grounds when school's not in session, to gather, so we'd somehow either have to replace a park potentially, or work with a developer to put a new park in place. Last item is a parking lot at 67th and Mitchell. This is a TIF-funded project. It's behind Oak Brewery and next to 6771, and it's part of the negotiations we have with the developer in creating adequate parking for that project. Gladly answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Sagar.
Could you disclose what's going at 6771?
It's, what we are working on right now, it would be half occupied by a event type business,
Okay.
and the other would be an event space business. So it's, it'll be like a hall, and but the business like was planning to go in there is related to that type of field.
And hence the parking related to
You
it.
need parking to be able to have events, yes.
Okay.
And OPE has been doing really well too with events, and so our goal is to have a shared parking field for both venues. That they would be CDA owned but managed privately.
And then, just to go back here, so the farmer's market lighting that I marked is on hold, so that kind of shows separately in the capital budget at this point. Then the other two, the Liberty Heights Pavilion and the Longfellow Playground, since they don't have, they have unknown funding to make those projects complete, then I'll move those also to the hold list, so that's where you'll see them in the final version of the budget.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, then we'll turn it over to engineering.
Okay, I did not really review what Pete had suggested for 2024, given my short time here, so I took what he had pretty much at face value. Although I was able to coordinate with DPW on their ideas on streets for not only this year, but for a 5-year capital budget. So most of the streets, 118th, 77th, 89th, Pierce, Rogers, all were already set. Mitchell Street was also set. And as I talked with staff a little bit about it, and we dove a little deeper into it, there are some significant storm sewer issues with this. There's 3 storm sewers, and some of them like sizable, like 72-inch storm sewers in the street. And we're trying to figure out a way to not have 3 giant storm sewers in one small street. So I would like to substitute a different project for the Mitchell Street. I talked with Jason this afternoon about it, so we're going to move a project from 2025 South 86th Street from Washington to Greenfield, and put Mitchell Street into 2025 to give us more time to look at that storm sewer issue. And we picked South 86th Street because on the list from DPW, it was one of the prime streets on that list to get done. So, and its road rating is a 3. So, we're requesting to make that substitution. It's actually, the 86th Street project is 1.7 million all in, and the Mitchell Street is 3.3 million. So we're having some cost savings by substituting that project in 2024 and pushing it to 2025, and hopefully we can bring that 3 million price tag down in 2025 when we figure out the storm sewer problems better. The Beloit project is not the street necessarily, but as part of the Beloit project, there's a railroad crossing in there. We had to gap that due to issues with the railroad, and then and to coordinate the closing of the crossing at South 55th Street. So that's the project that's on the list for 2024. Again, Lincoln is being reconstructed, some engineering and construction start next year. Planning for National Avenue. We put in for 2024, it was called the Washington Street Extension. We're trying to call it the new street because people are getting very confused when you say Washington Street Extension. They think it's going right through the town center, and that is not the case. We had a lot of people come to our information meeting, and as soon as they saw that, they were like, I'm out. So, so we're working with DOT. Patrick's team has been instrumental in working with the developer or the owners of that land and helping us figure out whether the railroad spur tracks are needed there or not. And we couldn't do those conversations without Patrick and his team. So thank you very much, Patrick. And we're fingers crossed. I think we're on the right track there. Sorry.
That's a great pun. That's a,
Get one every once in a while. DPW facility is moving forward. We put we budgeted $3 million for the engineering architectural costs. We're out for RFP right now, so should have someone on board later this year. The Greenfield Avenue is what Steve had talked about earlier, moved to 2024 due to the no bids. We have it's the patching program, and we'll determine those areas next year. Pierce is the PPII program is coming back. We're working on getting that area all put together for next year. The sidewalk program, again, we are going to combine it with the delayed one from this year. We added the streetlight circuits. We worked with Don Molson to figure out what the next area is with that. So that's another project that will continue for next year. I added a line called traffic calming program, and I took because we normally have been combining it with the pavement patching, but I wanted to break it out so that we could, as areas come up, and we always have these little projects like stop bars or trying to make stop signs better, or islands that come up where it's not something that necessarily you're going to do. We would have a budget set aside for that rather than trying to fit it into a patching program and then determining how much left is for patching. I just put a value to it. So we'll be determining those areas in the upcoming year. And then another street and the water main relay.
Are you working on like a criteria for the traffic calming? Like what would qualify, what would be the best use?
We have some of that. I guess there's a program already that the city has, so
Yeah,
I think we
neighborhood
would
traffic
rely on
management.
some of that
Okay.
as the starting point for it.
Sometimes I'll get a complaint, and some of the council members might too, and it's like on a dead-end street that's a block and a half, which doesn't make as much sense to me as something in
Right.
busier or more near a playground or a school or.
Right, and it wouldn't have to be necessarily a structural thing like an island or a traffic circle. It could be a stop bar. It could be just something very simple, or put just a crosswalk. It encompasses all those traffic calming, pedestrian safety kinds of things. So.
in some cases, we gotta get built metal bars. Just keep straight up.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Vince.
Yeah, I have a question about the Mitchell Street to 56th to 60th regarding the reconstruct concrete. So we did, I believe it's gotta be 8-9 years ago, we did from Greenfield Avenue to Mitchell. So it's all replaced concrete. So what really at that time, there was a lot of work with the right on 56 with the main sewer, which is pretty big and deep. So was a lot of work done on that corner. So as we know, going south from Beecher, all the way to used to be a steel company right on Electric Avenue. There is a constructed storm sewer from bricks and mortars, And still, over 120 years ago was built that, and still it's so intact. There's no problem at all, because back then, I think, they put some cameras down there, and that's unbelievable. So I don't know if it's connected right at Mitchell and goes down to Connecticut River Parkway. You know, I think it goes right out to the parkway down there around 57 and 56, you know. So it's something that, like I said, gotta be look at it, you know, in regard to once we do Mitchell Street, you know. I mean, to me, it's gotta be done, you know. So time for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
We'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yes.
All right. Then we'll move on to fire.
All right. So our first request is for 4 new ambulance cots. So the price tag is pretty shocking at $210,000. When I first became an EMT back in the 90s, you could probably buy 4 ambulances for $200,000. Now it just buys the cots. Cot manufacturers have gotten smart and realized that if they stamp an expiration date on it, we're forced to replace them on a regular basis. We used to have cots for 50 years, and now the liability behind that is they stamp a date on there, and if you talk to the city attorney, I think he would agree that to put somebody on a cot that is past its expiration date, bad things do happen. Well-known little secret that we did drop somebody on a cot years ago, and that person died because of their injuries. So it's important to have cots that meet current standards, which would include having one that's not expired. We're due for 4 new cots this year at the tune of $210,000.
So is that like the whole contraption with the wheels and the wheels that
Yeah,
come up?
yeah, they've gotten a lot more technical since the days of Johnny and Roy, where you just pick up the aluminum thing and slide it in. Now it's like almost like a little mini robot where the cot, you know, auto raises and lowers, and then feeds into a receiving system in the back of the ambulance. They're also rated for like DOT crash stuff like that they never were before. There's a lot more technology and engineering that goes into a cot compared to what it was 25 years ago. Second ask is for new CPR machines, and I don't have a quantity in here. I apologize for that. That's 2 or 3. But if you've seen ambulances in action in recent years, very rarely do you see humans performing compressions during CPR. Now it's like this CPR robot type thing. So we've deployed those probably 8 years ago now in all of our ambulances and fire trucks, and those also expire after a certain amount of time, and they're very complicated computers inside there, and the old version that we have from 8 years ago is no longer supported by the manufacturer, so it's time to move a couple of these out of the fleet and replace them with a couple of new ones. In our opinion, that's mission critical equipment nowadays. It's not really, it's not a nicety, it's a necessity. And then hearkening back to the conversation we had earlier about electric vehicles, we do have a price. This is just based off of conversations with We Energies for $50,000. I think that would put up to 4 charging stations at our fire administration building. Jason Shack is the expert on that, and what I'll have him do is get together with Dave Webking's staff and try to draft an email to you guys, kind of outlining at least what the 2 of them know. My understanding is with this price, there is some sort of incentive with the We Energies where you get X number of dollars back on your utility bills moving forward to help offset that cost. But Jason would be the one to answer that question more specifically.
And just quickly on that subject, Mason, those charging stations would be outside of the fire admin building, is that correct?
Still to be determined. So we did pour a concrete slab next to the garage at fire administration, kind of took out part of the garden area that was there. With anticipation where that's where our first electric vehicle would go, and that's where the charging station would go. The second one, if we do end up with a second electric vehicle, likely would go in the garage at fire administration, so that would be a charging station indoors. If we wanted to go beyond 2 at fire admin, they'd have to go at the angle parking, but that's public right away there, so we'd have to talk with engineering about how that would look, if that's even possible. The other option would be in that parking area between the fire station and the fire administration building. Right now, that's 24-hour firefighter employee parking, not city-owned vehicle parking, but we could reimagine that space maybe and put the charging stations in there. We're talking with other fire departments that do this, and the outdoor charging stations seem problematic because you have to have the door of the charging receptacle open on the vehicle, and in our climate, that could be bad, like overnight, if it's storming, you get ice and water building up, and now maybe you can't get it unplugged, or if you get it unplugged, you can't get the door closed again on the charging port. So before we decide for sure if we want the charging stations indoors or outdoors, we gotta have some more talks.
Thank you.
You said this was for 4.
Correct. Next one is some fire administration building brickwork. So this is probably the lowest priority of all of our asks, but also one of the smaller dollar amounts, $15,000. So if you've ever been to the fire administration building, there are 2 public access bathrooms on the first floor. And that building, the history of that is it used to be a fire station from the 1930s up until 2004 when it was remodeled into administration buildings. And they tried to keep the aesthetic same look. And at one point that was like the kitchen dining room area. And so we've got 6-foot tall windows right next to the commodes. So as you're doing your business in the morning, you're looking out, they're just double pane wood windows, you're looking out at the neighbors, and there's blinds on them, but they're also extremely poor quality. So like in the winter, the blinds are blowing in the wind, and dust actually blows in from the outside into the bathrooms. So my thought would be to brick those windows up 3/4 of the way and just put a tier of glass block at the top. That would drastically increase the energy efficiency and drastically increase the security. Now, it doesn't sound likely that somebody would break into the fire administration building, but about 8 years ago, we had somebody that found an unlocked door into our building, gained access to the building, and tried to steal a bunch of computers from our building. Now, luckily, they were caught by a fire department employee, but people do weird things. So if we could brick those windows up, it would increase security, increase privacy, and increase energy efficiency for the building. End of the day, if that ends up not making the cut, I completely understand, but I wouldn't do my diligence if I wasn't asking. And that was a quote from a mason in town somewhere, so it's a pretty solid concrete price. Next one is $27,000 for fire administration teleconferencing equipment. So when that building was built in 2004, we have a conference room probably a little bit smaller than this room. Milwaukee County's Office of Emergency Management applied for a federal grant, and they put in, at the time, very cutting-edge teleconferencing equipment that linked all the fire stations in Milwaukee County together. So for emergency management and for training purposes, we could communicate to any firehouse in the county. That was great. Eventually, that equipment hit end of life, and this is pre-COVID, so nobody was really thinking too much about teleconferencing needs. Then COVID hit, and realized that the stuff that we had installed was no longer working. So we scrambled, like most people, bought a couple of webcams and a couple of remote mics and threw them in the corners of the room. It works, but even by today's standards, barely. It's really hard to host a meeting in and out of that room. So we've been working with IT since COVID hit, trying to find the proper solution. So that $27,000 was the latest quote that IT got on upfitting that with modern cameras and modern microphones. Our staff still feels that we could probably do that cheaper, so we're hoping to bring that price down, but that's the best quote we've gotten so far. It's at the point now, so we've got 3 screens about that size in the room on 3 different walls, and one of the screen still works, but the networking equipment behind the screen that makes it show whatever's supposed to be on the computer has failed, and IT can't fix it because it's proprietary to the 2004 system that's installed there. So we've got one of our 3 screens is down. And then the method to select the different inputs. So we've got our city network computer, and then the ability, if you bring your own computer in, you can plug it in with a USB cable, or you can actually remote in through a Windows app. The switching mechanism to go between those different sources has failed. So right now you've got to dig around the back of the computer and unplug somebody else's computer to plug your computer in, or the city computer in to see it on the monitors. So we're at the point now where we definitely have to figure out something. So that's what that money would be for. The next one, the $250,000. So that was my last minute request because as I mentioned earlier, I had talked to Jason and forgotten that we had the ARPA money sitting there to remodel the Station 2 dorms. So at the last minute of this process, I just threw a blind $250,000 in to remodel those dorms because, like Alderman Vitale, if I had to guess how much it would cost, that would be my guess. I would not think it would cost $900,000 to do a dorm, but that $900,000 that's sitting there with ARPA money was based off of Wauwatosa's project. So that number is more accurate. This was me just scrambling and pulling a number out of the air at the last second, but we can scratch that altogether because we have the ARPA money sitting there from last year. So you can ignore that $250,000 request. And then the Fire Station 3 garage doors. So all three of our fire stations were either built or remodeled between 2004 and 2005. And we've been seeing increased number of failures. They're very large doors, they accommodate fire engines, and they're very, very heavy. And apparently all commercial garage doors, I learned this last year, come with a $100,000 open-close cycle life expectancy. And we're well beyond that for all of our doors. So Station 61s are actually getting replaced today. That was a emergency request that I put into the Common Council a few months ago because one of them, the tracks had completely just worn away to the point where the wheels weren't staying in the tracks and multiple things had broken on the door. So Station 1's doors are getting fixed right now. And that was our eye-opener that, hey, we're seeing this increase in door failures. It's time to replace all of them because they're past end of life. So that price is for the 2 doors that are on Station 3 on the west end. That only leaves Station 2 to take care of, but that one has 7 doors, so it's a much more expensive project. But we've got more leeway because Station 3 only has 2 doors. If one door fails, we're really out of luck as far as trying to get the other vehicle out of there. Having 7 doors at Station 2 gives us some wiggle room where if a door fails, we can move equipment around temporarily and still get rigs in and out. So it's, even though it's has more points of failure, it's got more redundancy as well. And then the last item is a new UTV ambulance. So this supports our efforts at the State Fair. So we currently have 3 UTV or UTV/ATV style ambulances. The oldest of those is 25 years old, so it's just due to be replaced. So that price would include the vehicle and all the equipment that would go along with the vehicle.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to go back a little bit about the fire stations. I believe it's probably my strong opinions, you know. So the District 3, where the fire station, the District 5, where the fire station is, so I understand that there's some investment to update some of the things in that building, right?
Yeah, are you talking specifically about Station 3 on the west side?
Yeah. So what really occurs for years, I always kind of bothered me a little bit, the fact that we have on 67th place, right off Beecher, we have a fire station. Then we have the main station right on National there on 72nd, 71st. So the problem that I see, so we have a Station 3, which I believe the building is not really what I can see is in good shape at all. So, you know, what I'm really looking the future, if we think about considering build, and like I said, there's the issue about the dorms. If we had invested, I don't know what it would cost to rebuild a new station, you know, and cover some of the, not to play around and invest money on something that's old, just like a Public Works, same thing. So to me, I think it would be the proper route to take, not just for today, but for the future, you know. To me, I think would be something to look into it. Maybe the station to be moved more, a little bit east, not to the extent, but find a location which would be feasible, you know, for the service, you know, in case an emergency arises, you know. And to me, I will be something really to digest and kind of looking for the near future, really.
Yep, I 100% agree. So, so the history for those of you who haven't been with the city for that long. So we have 3 fire stations in the city, and all 3 were either rebuilt or remodeled around 2004, 2005, as a result of a lawsuit against We Energies. So back in the 80s, We Energies had dumped some hazardous materials into the Honey Creek, didn't tell anybody. Our crews responded because there was something obviously wrong in the creek. A bunch of our equipment got contaminated, a bunch of our members were exposed to this hazardous material. The city sued We Energies, won the lawsuit, but the money was earmarked for public safety improvements, and that money the city chose to rebuild or remodel all the fire stations with. Station 3 on the west end was the last to be remodeled, and at that point, in my understanding, I worked here, but I was not the fire chief at the time, was that basically all the bulk of the money was spent on the front end on the other two stations in the fire administration building, and whatever was left was thrown at Station 3. It was the crummiest building to begin with, and basically just got a hack job remodel and sent on its way. So fast forward now, and continual maintenance issues. I'm sure Public Works can speak to how often they're out there working on HVAC and other things. So the foundation is, the building's off of its foundation. There's a gap yay big in the basement between one of the main beams and the ground. So it doesn't have much life left in it. In addition to that, it's in a horrible location. We've continuously failed to meet national standard response times on the west end of the city because the building is fairly far north in our response territory, but yet we go so far south that you can't drive safely from Station 3 to the far southwest corner of the city within national standard times. So ideally, we'd rebuild that station somewhere still in the Highway 100 corridor, but for maybe a mile or so south. That would give us a new station and end all these maintenance issues, and it would enable us to meet national standard response times. Problem is finding land and then pulling the trigger on building a station. You can't build a station of that size for less than probably, at the very cheapest, $7 million right now. So I've mentioned it a few times to this body, to our Police and Fire Commission. However, we're also in the middle of building a extremely expensive public works building. The future of this building is up in the air. So I don't think it's the right time to ask you guys for $7 million. So I mean, you guys are the Capital Improvement Committee, though. If that's the direction you say you want to go, talk to Rebecca. We'll get it done, but otherwise, we still have to have firefighters living in that building 24 hours at a time for the next however many years, which means some of these things have to be fixed. That's a decision I guess you guys have to make.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not, then we'll go on to IT.
So IT just has a one item.
Definitely be better.
All the servers have operating systems. It's reaching end of life. It's a Microsoft system, I believe, and they just need the latest version so they can keep support.
Okay. Planning?
Thank you, Mayor. First item we're requesting is for the Beloit Road housing roof replacement. It says on here about two roofs to be replaced, but after receiving some bids, I think we can actually get 3 done for that $120,000 number.
All right. Hey, something cheaper.
Right.
City bike racks. This is a continuation of a program that we've implemented. We've put racks throughout the city, a lot of redevelopment areas throughout the town. It's business friendly, it's biker friendly. It'd be city branded bike racks, and we purchased about 30 of them at the tune of about just over $11,000. The Hope Trails is an inspirational signage project and walking inspirational type of thing in city parks. And we're working with our health department. They received a grant, and we would allocate, I know it says on here about $30,000, but we'd allocate $10,000 of that grant money that the health department received towards purchasing signage and just sort of creating some walking within existing walking paths within parks. So, for instance, at Clents Park and Liberty Heights Park, Vets Park, for instance, they all have existing walk paths. We utilize those paths to create some inspirational signage around the parks, offer some facts on getting help if mental illness related types of things. So it would work well with many of our city parks. So we're looking at that project, allocating about $10,000 towards it. So I guess we can just subtract $20,000 off the 30 there. Liberty Heights Skate Rink. This is a project our Liberty Heights Neighborhood Association is currently, they received the ice rink from Kegels, and over the past couple of years, I think the fire department, DPW, have helped out quite a bit you know, setting up the rink and getting it out there, and then flooding it during the winter time, and then weather cooperates sometimes, and then it doesn't other times, and it's a really inconsistent use. The association, the neighborhood association, does have, I think, 75 pairs of skates, and they sell or give away hot chocolate and things like that. And you know, kids and adults alike use it when it's available. However, they're looking for something more permanent year-round that would be set up once, and it could stay in place at Liberty Heights year-round. Could be used in 90-degree weather or 20 below degree weather, and you know, the surface is a synthetic surface that you can skate upon. And I've heard that New Berlin has something like this near their library. I haven't seen it yet in person, but I've seen others throughout the country. It's kind of a neat thing. The cost of that, just we've had earmarked here, is about $65,000. Then Reservoir Park pickleball. This is a request. Alderwoman Grisham indicated that Reservoir Park would be an ideal location for a couple of pickleball courts, and contacted our park consultant for a quick estimate, and about $150,000 would be needed. And it doesn't include any lighting. It would just be the courts, and there is an existing grass area at Reservoir Park that could be utilized near Lapham Street for the game that's pretty much trending across the country. And the Safe Streets for All, this is a $5,000 ask, and what that $5,000 would be used for is the city's local match. Now, the city of Milwaukee County actually received about a $800,000 grant from the Wisconsin, for the federal government, DOT, US DOT, and Milwaukee County is going to be giving out roughly about $20,000 to each of the 19 municipalities within the county. You have to apply for that, and the county's asking, the buy-in to get into that is $5,000 locally. So if we paid $5,000, we get into a grant. We can get up to a $20,000 grant, and if not all 19 municipalities apply, potentially more. So it does offer, I think, West Allis an advantage to improve some safety. It gets us a plan for safer streets, and also opportunity to apply for other bigger grants through USDOT and so on.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Steve.
Sure.
Steve, is older person Grisham, she knows where the money is coming from?
That we don't have money. The source of that isn't indicated. I mean, we could take a look at CDBG, but I think there's some issues with you know, the income eligibility within the Reservoir Park area
Yeah, we
that
don't
we have to be
have that
careful
there. I mean,
about. So
there's
we
no
don't really
money
have
for
a
it.
source yet. And then additionally, we should probably do some more, you know, park plan to see where it's
Yeah.
most appropriate. It's a very good idea. And then pickleball, I mean, it's a trending sport right now. A lot of people are doing that versus tennis. People still play tennis, but pickleball is spreading like wildfire across the country. And you know, we have some courts at Liberty Heights that were tennis courts converted. The nets are a little too high, but
Too high, yeah.
Dave's team's working on lowering those nets a little bit for to meet regulation. 36 inches for pickleball, 42 inches for tennis. So,
Yeah, just the idea is that the amount of usage and the cost is really, like I said, this time there's no really money to invest, you know, on that proposed. So, you know, I mean, which is fine, you know, but I don't think we should really, at this time, even think about it. I'm sure the budget is gonna be a little tight this fall, you know? So that's my suggestion, you know?
keep,
The idea is great, but the question is the funding. You know, we can always spend money, but where the money's coming from, you know?
true.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so Alderman Vitale, since this doesn't have funding, it's gonna go on the hold list at this point, so.
Yes, thank you.
I still, and I don't want to belabor this, but Little League was talking about expansion plans 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and we haven't heard any updates on that. There's still that talk, plan,
Yeah.
splash pad and
Yeah.
that whole part. We still don't have a lease with Little League. It's been years. We should kind of get that in place before we start. More. All right. If there's no other questions, then we'll go on to police.
I do have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
With this skating rink, is there lighting around there?
In the area where the volleyball courts are, there is some lighting, so it's kind of on the southeastern or northeastern portion of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So I think you would need to add more lighting.
okay.
And it doesn't cost to keep this cold, it's just,
It's like a slippery surface that you skate on with your skates.
is there maintenance?
Over time, I mean, these things do wear out, so there would be maintenance costs that have not been, factored into this, so the lifespan, I mean, I guess depending on the use, it could be 5-10 years.
We'll get a synthetic Zamboni.
Right, how do you sweep it? You gotta put skates on to
Synthetic
sweep it.
lights.
You hire a curling
to-
team.
Oh.
It is, there is
There we go.
a possibility too for, how, parks generating revenue, whether you lease it out to, hockey groups or clubs or something occasionally, maybe one night a week or something. There's maybe a chance to generate some revenue, that type of thing. Would it pay for the cost over time? I guess that remained to be seen. We have to we'd have to really maybe take a harder look at that to see if how that could work out.
So Steve, that same thing then, CDBG is earmarked for the construction, but then CDBG can't be used for the maintenance, correct?
Correct, right, yeah, so it would fall upon city or, some other maybe private groups, if you get, hockey locker or hockey clubs maybe to maybe kick in
I
some
wonder if
money
the
for it.
Pettit Center would have
Yeah, the
any
Pettit,
interest
maybe something, yeah.
in the off-season.
You said
Well, I guess they don't have an
Yeah.
off-season because they're
New
indoors.
Berlin has it, and unfortunately I haven't checked it out yet or talked to anybody in New Berlin to see what their experience has been like with that. I'm kind of curious.
And then when we talked to the parks consultant, he said there are a couple of places around Madison adding them,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
It would be interesting to know their experience, like how often are they gonna have to fix it, like, when we have issues with people destroying bathrooms, are they gonna
Right.
go and destroy this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we might need cameras too.
True.
Any other questions? All right, now we'll go to police.
All right, we technically have 2 requests, but a third's been added to ours for efficiency. So we're looking for bullet-resistant material in the municipal court, which would be the west wall of our police building lobby, and then the police portion of that same lobby. If you do a simple Google search, if there is going to be an attack against government, it's city halls. They apparently don't like elected officials, and they don't like police officers. So those would be the 2 biggest threats in the city. There is a company that is doing a fair amount of work in the state of Wisconsin right now, where it's essentially a film that goes over the glass, and it'll buy you some time. In your case, for the common council, you can duck
Hide, yeah.
behind your desk and
Is that- yeah.
I'm hiding behind Vince.
duck and
No,
and
he
buy some
can't.
time. If you do build a new city hall, I would strongly encourage you to have an escape route. If you look at how this room above us is set, you have no logical escape route. I would suggest that you run through this glass door up here.
Yeah.
So you're in a good spot, Kevin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the best. I know.
Yeah.
I've thought about that.
Take Rosalie with you.
I mean, nope, I'm going.
Or to your left and get out the glass door.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotta help Rosalie.
So it would, in our department, it
Arm
would buy
shiver.
us some time to respond to the threat. Same thing for municipal court. And the only other thing that we're looking for is a recording system. Every police department records their 911 lines as well as their radio lines, police radio lines and fire. Our system is at end of life, so that quote is to replace that system. And that is all we have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
With the
Vehicles.
You have one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
With your recording system, is there some type of search for record requests and things like that, like we're gonna have for the cameras and all that kind of stuff? How is it?
I can
does
find
that
out.
work?
I doubt it, like you're saying, like a keyword.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, we
or-
find calls now by narrowing it down with the citizen, when did you call? And then we'll find it on the appropriate line. I could check, but I highly doubt it'll have like an AI capability of how many times has the word police been used.
Or even like, I don't know how it works to get the record to the people.
Oh, for like, with Axon, we can deliver a link.
Right, right.
You're talking like that? Yeah, I'll find out. So we're out of the business of CDs. Yep,
You can have the rest we have here.
yeah,
Kevin?
I will check.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, so Chief, the glass that's currently in use at the police station, it's not bullet resistant, or is it? I guess I'm just surprised. I assumed that it was. I'm surprised that it was installed. I mean, it was in the 1990s. People had guns then, but
Yeah, you didn't see a lot of thought in the 90s to target hardening, I would say. You look at where I came from in the city of Milwaukee, when I left, they still had open counters that you could simply
Hop over,
catapult
yeah.
over and get into the police station. So yeah, that was not a common thought in the 90s.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then we will move on to Public Works.
For some updated equipment purchases, Aero Board, this assists with traffic control. So these are mounted on two individuals in this case. It'll be replacing equipment that's roughly 20 to 25 years old. The next one is the Bobcat tractor attachments. What we're looking for is buying attachments that can also provide servicing of snow plowing operations. This Bobcat was purchased by our stormwater management account, and we want to dual purpose. So in the spring, summer, and fall, it would do its pervious paver cleaning, but then in the wintertime, it's also can be snow plowing as well. Boulevard conversion, we're requesting $10,000 to consolidate and improve the aesthetics of the boulevard there on 84th and National, right underneath the railroad tracks. Our stormwater pumping station on 111th and Grant, we're looking at improving on the pump rebuild. So we have 4 pumps at that location, and every year, the last 2 years, we've been repairing those in a rebuild, which have been very costly, so to speak. Next is the catch basin repair and replacement. This is for materials for our crews and staff to replace and repair those catch basins that have been identified by Public Works or engineering staff. Roof replacement for $120,000. It's right above us where we're experiencing leaks in and around the skylighting. We've had repaired, but just based on the age, it is due for replacement. But again, this is something that we may want to wait based upon the longevity or what is the plan of City Hall. Next is our digger derrick truck. This is 24 years of age. This is a piece of equipment that can help with the placement of long streetlight poles that are for our street lighting project, as well as any street lighting that may be knocked down in crashes. Our drill rig truck, this is replacing a vehicle that is approximately 20 years of age, and again, this assists with the leaks, so identifying specific locations of where those water leaks may be in a lateral, or excuse me, in the main. Then we have a dump truck that's replacing a dump truck that's been here for 22 years for $90,000. Fire station generator, as well as the fire station tuck pointing. The tuck pointing project was proposed, I believe in 2020, was delayed. And now, given this information that Chief Pooler indicated, if it is funded, we'll go ahead and try to address this as well during the construction process. The generator, we're seeing an increased cost for the generators, and the police department has experienced that as well. We originally budgeted for $325,350, and it's already exceeding $625,000, I believe. Fire Station 3, we had some issues with the air conditioning systems. The refrigerant is expired, so we're basically had it repaired with the existing refrigerant, but the next time it's going to be where we have to redo the whole air conditioning system at Station 3. So that's something that would be approximately, at least at a minimum, $55,000. Generator at our 84th Street pumping station for our water tower. That's due to be replaced. We just put a marker of about $300,000. Again, that would require a consultant to see and verify what the needs assessment is for that type of generator, for the adequate pumping of water to the residential area there. Health Department, tuck pointing, asking for $25,000. This was originally requested in 2020, and it was postponed at that time due to other projects. Hydrants, we're just looking at the annual replacements for $100,000. The library roof, we're looking at severe leaks. I was just notified earlier this morning that there's a existing leak that has been identified again in the large area of the library. So we may be fixing or having a construction consultant come in sooner rather than later. We have attempted to identify, but it's the rock tar type roof. So basically the whole roof has to be removed, you know, all the materials in order to find the leak. So it's almost better to put a new roof on there for that type of costs and labor. Pickup trucks too, they're replacing 20 and 22 years vehicles for $90,000. We did put a placement holder of $500,000 for the private lead service replacement if funds are needed in the future. Electric soft starters, again, this coincides with the pump replacement or rebuilds at the stormwater pumping station on 111th and Grant. We're also looking
Dave, what's a
at,
soft starter?
so it's a starter to get the pump going, so it ignites and gets the energy to the pump.
Okay.
So that's been approximately 30 to 35 years of age.
Thank you.
Refuse packer, we're just changing that out, reevaluating our fleet, and that would be proposed to replace a refuse packer of 23 years. Recently, we did receive some updates regarding the electrical wiring at our reservoir pumping station on 96th Street. Again, we're looking at the long-term use of this facility, but the wiring is approximately 63 years of age. So at some point in time, even if we discontinued as a storing or a reservoir pumping station and we use it as a bypass or a booster to add pressure to get water from point A to point B, the electrical wiring system is recommended to be updated. Riding mowers, we're looking to replace 4 mowers that are approximately 17 and 22 years of age for $90,000. Rogers Park, we're looking at new surface material for the playground area, and we're hopefully, we did inquire for CDBG funding for that project. Supervisor vehicle replacement, again, this was initially asked for the grant, the Carbon Reduction Act, but since we were not approved for that, We're looking at a replacement of these vehicles that are approximately 14 to 16 years of age at a total of $115,000. 2 tandem dump trucks, we're looking at a total of $725,000. They're replacing 2 vehicles that are 17 years.
Does
in
tandem
service.
mean 2 back wheels?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 axles
Not-
in the back.
One dump truck with another that you can tow
Yeah,
behind?
so 2 axles with
Okay.
2 wheels on each side
Like-
of the truck.
Tandem semi-trucks going down the freeway?
A tandem bicycle.
Yeah.
One driver in front and a passenger in back.
Yeah.
I'll stop now.
I was just curious. I
Never
just-
done that, yeah.
I guess I would call that double axle.
So we have a tandem dump blades. So these snowplow blades would go on to our tandem dump trucks. So we're just looking at replacing and updating those plow blades at $30,000 for 2. Traffic control cabinet, that's a request that we have annually for our traffic control cabinets. They're fairly expensive, and we're just updating those cabinets, or if one was become damaged or destroyed through an accident, we would have one on hand to replace it with. Traffic infrastructure on 124th in Oklahoma. We're looking at replacing the existing traffic cabinet as well as the infrastructure there. And that would be for $80,000. Trailer mounted attenuator, this is new. This is something, the attenuator that we currently have, we put in the back of a tandem dump truck. So therefore, in the wintertime, it precludes us from using it because we have a salter on it. So by having a trailer attenuator, we can hook that up with a tandem or a single axle dump body.
Dave, what's an
during the wintertime.
attenuator? What does it attenuate?
Attenuator is
Yeah.
kind of like a accordion type absorption of a crash. So it takes all the energy.
Oh,
and
yeah,
focuses
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
during a crash, and it kind of prevents, I guess, the damage of the vehicle, but it protects and absorbs the energy of the vehicle or vehicles that may rear end a work site or work area.
Thank you.
Tree replacement.
Does everyone know that? Or-
Yeah,
we all do.
Kevin,
Common
Kevin, I was
knowledge.
gonna say, I was gonna say, you're not a criminal lawyer.
Actually, I
that's
didn't. I
why.
just
You didn't know that.
Googled it quick.
slipped out a holiday.
out.
So trees, this is our annual purchases for approximately $60,000 for 600 trees. We have a van replacement. Again, this is for the water division. So again, this is through the sensor. Rebecca, you kind of mentioned that. So we drive throughout that billing area. So they would pick up all the readings automatically.
How much are the sensors? We should just put them on the garbage trucks.
Yes, we could do that as well, yeah. Know that we're there at certain times. Veterans Park, there we're noticing that the pavers, I believe this project was done in the mid-1990s, and some of the personalized pavers are kind of coming to an end of life. So we're looking at trying to re-enhance that area and trying to revive those personalized bricks that are there for our veterans and their families. Water meters are the annual water meters for replacement, and we have a wheel loader that we're looking at to replace at $245,000. Any questions?
Thanks, Dave. Any questions?
On the brick pavers for Vets Park, now, that was a fundraiser to get the park, but somebody ended up providing some money to create Vets Park. Was there any money ever left over in a fund for long-term maintenance of the park?
I never heard of or identified any. I know that was,
I don't remember the gentleman's name. but-
Well, vividly, I remember that. There was a lot of fundraising, which I bought a brick, so I don't know. Don't take my name out.
Yeah.
Dave.
A lot of city
Yeah.
people that have names on bricks.
Yeah, a lot of people donate money,
Still getting
really.
inquiries once in a while.
Every once in a while, we have somebody is the keeper of the map of where the names are. It was our department, and
And who would have that, and who originated the project?
it came out of our department.
Yeah. I sent what we had over to Mike Rushmer.
Did you? Okay.
Hopefully that helps. I mean,
So before he leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Steeple.
Maybe we should call John
Took my
Steeple.
side.
yeah, yeah.
It's in this. Any other questions? All right. Then that wraps up the review. You want to sum it, or what, how do we
Yeah,
conclude it?
so we went through the fun part of, here's what the requests are. Not all of these requests, I mean, there's a lot of different funding sources. So I guess right now, I would just like you guys to go to the whole capital improvement packet. And in there is a big 11 by 17 sheet. It has all the individual funding sources. And I would say, just generally, as we go through as you look at all the funding sources, utility cash, TID cash, levy debt, everything in here, in my opinion, other than the first column, is reasonable for the city. If you have any questions with any of those funding sources, or I should say right now, do you have any, other than column 1, do you have any questions with those funding sources? Okay. Then just want to focus on column 1, which says capital projects cash. So typically that column said carryover. That's what you'd be familiar with. And I don't know if you recall, but my goal was to eventually get away from using carryover, because you'd have to wait till May to figure out if you could even afford the stuff that's on the list. Well, I figured it'd be a few years before we could get there. We're there already. We have enough cash on hand that we can stop using carryover. We can make legit capital budget that we can run with right away in January. And the reason that it came sooner rather than later, I think, is really the interest rates went through the roof, and that led to additional cash that we were able to put into the capital projects fund. However, we don't have $3.8 million to throw at this grand total that's in this column. Okay, so last year's budget, I limited this column to $3 million. Again, this year, I would like to limit this column to $3 million. That means we have to make some choices. Not everything that's in that column can be funded. I don't know the best approach to go about this. I know we've been here now for an hour and 45 minutes, but if you guys would want to go through suggestions for cuts, I have an Excel spreadsheet that I can bring up where we could take a look at at least what I would recommend, one person out of the committee, and we could have some discussions. Or would you guys rather think on this and send your suggestions to me, and I can kind of compile that for the committee?
I'd lean towards the latter. I don't know about anybody else.
Maybe he could show us his, and
I-
then we could,
Yeah, I'm willing to
Sure.
just go out there and say what my thoughts were, so I'll bring that up.
are we meeting again next month?
That was the next thing, was
So
I
the,
think.
I think the 29th was the next
29th.
scheduled meeting. Yeah, that's what I hear.
Hoping it is next Wednesday, somewhere in the fall. Hoping it's so close. Yeah,
All right,
AC is broken.
so
Oh,
on this spreadsheet, I separated out, I have all of the items that are listed in the capital projects cash. And I started picking and choosing items that I personally thought we could forego, at least for now. And I put them in a separate column over here so that we could get down to a $3 million cap. Yes, sir.
All right, so just starting in administration and clerk, I know Rebecca said the blinds are not gonna be 5,000, so we can probably bring that down. Question about the voting machines I thought of, the 750, is that per machine or just 750 period?
750.
Is this from the Secretary of State, or?
Yeah, some of the state.
They should really give us 750 a machine.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm going out on a limb, right? I'm
Mhm.
just throwing out my thoughts out there. This is what I was thinking. Let me see if I can show you more of the screen.
Okay.
All right, there's the list in its entirety. So these items, I personally thought maybe we could go without. I know, Mason, you said that the cots they are expired, or they're becoming expired?
I think it's a mix of right now.
Okay, would it be reasonable to start, could we go with one at this point and then start grabbing some more?
I would, I'll double check, but I would assume that we tend to buy them in groups, so once one expires, they're probably all in halves. Like we have a cot in every ambulance, we have 6 ambulances, so 3 are probably of one vintage and 3 of another vintage, so at least 3 are probably expired already, or
If-
approaching this calendar year.
Okay, if you could just double check that, because I guess that could change things. The electric vehicle charger, we don't know what our plans are long-term yet for the city going electric, so I just thought maybe now is too soon to invest into something like that. I know we got, that truck was a grant-funded truck, right?
No,
It was not?
it's not.
Thought that was grant-funded. Okay. I know you talked about the teleconference equipment. That is a pretty hefty bill there. You said that maybe you could bring those costs down. $27,000 for teleconference equipment just seemed to me to be maybe a bit over the top. I think we gotta work on that. We don't need the dorm remodel in here. That just comes out automatically because that was a duplicate.
Right.
TV ambulances, how many of those do we have?
3.
And what are the vintages of those 3, do you know?
The oldest one is 25 years old, it's from the 90s.
That's this one.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 others yet?
Mhm.
And then when do we use those TVs on a regular basis?
Primarily the 11 days of State Fair, but then also Milwaukee Mile events, NASCAR races, pretty much any event at the State Fair Park. Well, they would say they're paying us $150,000 a year just for the 11 days of State Fair.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, is what do we get reimbursed for them again?
For the 11 days of State Fair by itself, for the fire side of the work, for the fire and EMS side, we get $150,000.
And we get the billing for all the work that we do, but that doesn't,
So we don't,
Pay us, or-
part of the agreement is we don't bill the patients during State Fair.
Oh.
Because that's a nightmare paperwork-wise, because people are from out of state, you know, some of these carnies come from wherever, and they try to track them
these
down.
carnies. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, it's true.
Yes, yes.
I don't mean as a derogatory term, but people that work at the carnival for a living travel around the nation.
Yep, yep.
and
Okay, thank you for, yeah. I was hopeful that we got the billing, but yeah, okay, thank you.
So, I feel like if it's bringing in $150,000, this cost is justified, because it'll pay for itself in less than a year.
Although we do have 2 though.
But they're paying for all of our overtime. That's overtime that they're paying for.
So when we come up with a $150,000 rate, we charge them time and a half of our employees' loaded salaries, and then FEMA publishes a rate schedule for equipment. So we, every fire truck, ambulance, ATV that is there We charge them by the hour based on the FEMA rate, and then there's some other costs built in. So it's definitely a project that puts us in the black as far as the city goes.
Is there anybody here, so these were my guesses. Is there anybody here that has items that they're looking at the department level at this point, going, hey, maybe this is something that we need to postpone that I don't have on the list that we can change things out at all?
I think the bulletproof resistant panels and glass, as long as we get the riot proof glass,
Yep.
For which, both?
So what,
I'm just saying, yeah, take out that 50,000, 25 for each, but
take these out?
Like, so taking out meaning put it back in, that's something we're going to pay for, that we need.
no.
No.
So everything on this list is include.
Right, I'm saying
Include.
exclude those.
Oh, okay, okay. Yep.
Rebecca,
These
though,
over here.
and I know Mark C. was further in the weeds on those quotes. To me, the CSC one stops a threat from getting in the building Monday through Friday when all the employees are here. The panels for the council, someone from the police department is at every council meeting,
Yeah.
but we're not always here when your building is open.
The riot proof brass, that stops outside, so the CSC, I mean, the glass is there, but we have a wall that people can shoot through and get into
Yeah.
the building.
To me, I don't know why the bid is broken out into
Yeah.
two. Cause to me, it's one bid to protect the CSC.
Oh, these two pieces here?
Yeah, the 25 and the 20. Like when they quoted our building, it's one bid, no matter where it is in the building. Like we're gonna do the employee west entrance on like the basement level. So I would think that's one project. I don't know why they broke it out two
I
different ways.
think I did that.
Okay.
I've got some hesitancy on excluding the council chambers. I feel like I've been asking for that for 10 years, and I know years ago Officer Hartman went through and did an assessment, and with mental health issues rising and gun crimes rising, it's still something I'd like to figure. I mean, again, I don't know if it's the best effort to protect us sitting up there, but and I guess there's 3 other people that sit up there that are here. I don't know, 4 actually. I don't know if.
I agree with you 90% of the time, Dan, but this is 10%.
Well, I want 95.
This is 5%.
Because I'm gonna stack you all up in front of me if somebody comes in.
Yeah, that's right. No.
We're gonna be done if someone wants to get
Right.
us, regardless
And
of which
yeah,
the panels are there or not.
the
That's
determined
way I
person.
feel it.
It's more for show, more for but even just to make us feel better.
Or maybe we can just use that 25,000 for a fire escape down in the back corner. To go
Door right behind you.
right down here.
A slide.
Slide out the thing, trap door.
Mr. Mayor, didn't Rebecca say that you're looking at maybe moving City Hall to the library once other folks move out of here, though? So, I mean, how much money do you throw into a building? Kind of like the Station 3 discussion. How much money do you throw into a building when you don't know the future of
Yeah.
the building?
So, yeah, I'm with not paying for bullet-resistant panels, but I'm for paying $15,000 for shades in here.
So can I just get one panel for $3,000 in front of where I sit?
We can get you a shield, like
So-
Captain America.
So obviously there's some,
Shield, yeah.
diverse
Made of
opinions.
vibranium.
I don't know if anyone else has any.
So do we get these two here, these would go together? Like are you saying that we can split these, or? does
I'd
that-
have to read the bid, but that is my guess that is one bid.
Okay.
Unless, where did they tell you they were gonna put the riot-proof
On
glass?
the doors,
Like by the CSC?
like the front doors.
entrance
as far
doors?
as I know, the bullet resistant glass is actually in front of them.
Okay, it's
and the other
protecting,
ones
yep,
Are to get into the building, so
Yep.
these, doors and then the front doors.
No.
So it's more of a
so if you, and
protect the building.
I'll look at the quote and get back to you, Jason. So if you were gonna eliminate another thing, if you didn't do the doors,
I mean, if,
there's no good answers
even if we
with
did-
City Hall.
yeah, if we did that to the doors, don't the windows serve as a, like, you could just smash a window and get it?
No, they put sheeting over anything on the front of the building. So yes, theoretically, someone could go further down
'Cause
and
we
break a
boarded-
window and come in, but
we
that's
boarded
gonna
them.
take time.
We boarded them all up with that event that happened here that
Yeah.
time. I mean, I know
The
it could take.
windows,
Yeah, they're pretty thick too. I mean,
I'll look at the
Sorry,
bids and I'll
speak up on
Okay.
your side on the next thing that comes up,
give
no
you
matter what.
my guesstimate.
let me just get one vehicle charger for
Where are we
I'll
here?
ask that.
$12,000 or
I'm
something.
not sure if it's a dollar. I think a lot of it's infrastructure on the front end, because I think they do drop a second service into the building, and that's where a lot of that cost come from. The charging stations itself, I think, are smaller price.
then,
Any thoughts, Rebecca, on the voting machines?
You can leave those out.
Okay.
It's, I would hope that they would be giving us more grants for the elections next year, but I do think the sun barrier, but that's also putting more money in this building.
Right, yeah.
Jason,
Dave?
so with Chief Pooler, the $55,000 for the HVAC. So what we could do, we're rolling the dice, and when it does occur, we would attempt to use monies from the general account of Public Works or what have you to worry about it at that time,
Jason, what's the capital projection for like, the following year or two? Is there more wiggle room, or some of these could get pushed off a year but still get done in a somewhat timely fashion?
That's a tough question to answer at this point.
Sorry. Okay.
So kind of going into that thought process, the wheel loader for $245,000.
Oh,
We
here
could delay
comes
it.
some good money. Way to go, Dave Westgate.
That solves a lot of problem in one item. So what are your
It's
thoughts on
1
that?
year, piece of equipment.
Okay, so you're saying here, the HVAC, roll the dice, well, I'm literally gonna put roll the dice on here for a second.
Yeah. Roll the dice, and then I'll roll the dice, yep. And then,
Potential for delay here.
Well, with any equipment, I mean, I think we had that discussion, we could always, one more year, just so it's not 20 years,
Right, well,
23 years.
there is a limit, right? Because
Yeah.
we talked about a couple items that had already been postponed since 2020. We don't want to
Correct.
continue to postpone those indefinitely.
Yep. But again, it's,
I mean, if we pull
I-
out that 245, I mean,
again, Brett,
And
and
we're done, let's go.
Move those back in.
these could be moved
Oh.
over. 15, oh, the Sunbury. So that easily fixes things.
And I've got to type up
Now we
the
got plenty of room for
the
Kevlar.
recording system.
I still feel
I will
guilty.
find out what we mean by end of life, because that is a lifeline for the cops on the streets. If a cop screams, help, I'm here, and dispatcher doesn't hear it clean, they go back and replay that to listen to where the cop was.
Yeah, and I would back up. That's a pretty valuable piece of equipment for both sides of the
Put that back
house. And I think that failed a couple of years ago, and it took a long time to get fixed.
Okay, so here's a new version. Patrick,
I see a lot of stuff here that we really need, and nothing against Melinda and her budget, but I'm looking at like Pierce Street from 76 to 77.
different funding.
Well, it says levy. You're just saying primary cash?
It's gotta be in the first column.
Okay, there's nothing there, so.
Hey,
Got lucky.
If the roads aren't good, nobody goes anywhere.
Well, it's
right?
one
So-
block. That was my point, was it was limited impact.
All right, so we've shuffled around a few things here. Dave, with your delaying that wheel loader, that really changes a lot of things here. So now, here's our new excluded list.
We need to find out about the
Oh, nice. Look at this. Just dropped in.
Oh, God.
That's awesome. Came from up there
That
somewhere.
pellet.
Is the pickle?
Centipede.
Oh, oh.
Came to visit.
I thought the roof was leaking. It's just the spike.
Yeah.
That would've been timely.
I won't be able to see anything.
Is there still room in the ARPA accounts, or is that money all earmarked already?
Other than the 900, it's all, the rest is earmarked for DPW.
Earmarked for what'd you say, Jason?
DPW.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the DPW facility to the extent that we can. So,
Oh,
Uh,
there.
so-
Yeah, thank you.
that's a good point, though. ARPA has to be under contract by the end of next year. So right now, we're trying to make sure that we can get DPW under contract by the end of next year. If for some reason it's looking like that's not going to happen, then I have alternate funding on the sheets here. If you look all the way to the right, there's a bunch of ARPA dollars earmarked there. So then instead of spending those ARPA dollars on that facility, we'll revert back to what we have been doing, which is spend it on the utilities instead of borrowing. And then we would also go after the streets instead of borrowing. But that's not the best scenario. I would prefer that if we can, we would use that on the DPW facility.
Another question then, so.
Jason, what's the CIP not to exceed $875,000? To me, I mean, you raise a good point on that, you know, that we have to really find to reduce that amount, right?
You're talking about the 3.75 million?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's for streets. And I can actually speak to that too. So if you look on the second page of the funding detail, and you look towards the, let's see here, the middle, it says levy debt. There's a levy debt column. And then you just look at the streets section, that says $3.6 million right there. So we're under our limit. And then what we would do when the time comes to actually borrow, we would see how much cash we have on hand and reduce the borrowing to the extent that we can.
Yes.
So this would be the upper limit of the borrowing at that point.
Thank you.
So when we were going through the 2023 updates from the department heads here, I think Dave had a couple of things that were canceled for various reasons. Does that free up any money? Can some of these projects get bumped up a year? Is that a couple of things that aren't gonna come to fruition?
So I've taken into consideration everything from a cash perspective that is not earmarked, okay? There might be some projects that haven't been updated yet, potentially, but that's not included in this at this point. That would be something that we would keep looking at on the go forward. You know, as Justine in particular is working with you guys and going, okay, what's the updated status on this project? Then we can close those out if that's okay, and make it available in future years. Yeah. So anyway, here is an updated exclude list. Got the panels that we're not going to do for the mayor.
You can just talk to my widow.
Take in there, something,
Give them an expired one.
yeah.
Give me a taser.
And these items can come up again. This is, at this point, saying that these aren't items that we want to approve for 2024, right? So, vehicle charging, I don't think that's gonna be off the table forever. We need to come up with a plan, you know, for the city. What does that look like?
We're gonna find out if we can just get one.
Yeah, and that wheel loader, we know we're gonna have to buy it eventually.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in 25, we can't, you know, can't delay it forever. Is this reasonable to the committee?
Yes.
Does that get us to where you need to be?
Yeah, literally, exactly. Just so happened to work out that way, I don't know.
And then we don't have to come back on the 29th and risk centipedes being in.
Yeah, so then I guess we wouldn't have to come back on the 29th. I would just make these changes, and then this would be included in our budget in November.
That sounds good. I
Looks
just
like
wanna-
we're in agreement, or Patrick?
I just want to make a commentary that, you know, through this process of being part of this the past few years, that it's really difficult to elevate any of our park projects into the cash area. I mean, we depend solely really on CDBG funds or some other grant source to put any type of park improvement into our city. And that means our parks aren't sustainable. And they're gonna become, you know, it's harder to maintain them, just like the streets or anything like that. But, I mean, our neighborhoods depend on our parks, and the quality of our parks drive people to the neighborhoods. So, I'm just speaking up for that. I just think it's important that we just not ignore that. And I know we had a discussion about this process through the year about, you know, we've kind of had some committees meeting, or groups meeting, talk about pedestrian improvements because of the reckless driving and things like that, that if these things come up, how can we get them addressed through the year? And we've done some things, but I don't know how much more we can do. We talked about having some sort of fund to be able to address those things on a, like, immediate need. We're getting businesses that are asking us to address reckless driving in the community, and whether it's on Lincoln or on Greenfield Avenue or on National Avenue, we've done some, but there's been more requests than that, so. I know we've had those discussions, the mayor's been part of that, so.
Well, there is a designated amount in there
150,000.
for engineering,
150,000.
150.
Anywhere?
I called it traffic calming, and
Okay.
those are.
Then I missed that one.
Specifically to try to address those kinds of things as they come up, so.
I'm gonna stick
mean-
with the park conversation. So, park-
I anticipated for you, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just wanna make sure that was in there.
And it's not like we just fill every request either, we evaluate, try to
right.
right size it too, so we wanna be cognizant of how we
But
spend the money.
I have it in the wrong column.
So I don't know how we add an amenity for the
No,
community
I
in
know.
the priority list.
I don't know how we can prioritize parks over these.
I
other
know, it's a struggle. It is.
It's
so.
almost like you wanna start putting away an incremental amount every year, which will build up to something that would be worth spending. You know, if it's 10,000 a year for 6 years or something, I mean,
That's what we used to do, but we can't carry that.
yeah.
I mean, the departments used to do that for their capital needs.
Right, for vehicles and,
But we can't carry that with our limits that we have.
Yeah.
Just a concern.
yeah, I don't know, I mean, public-private partnerships.
I think we all did a good job. I move we adjourn.
We have to motion to approve the.
I move to approve what we have there, and
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, ayes have it, motion carries. Now you can move.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.